I never thought I'd actually go through with it. It was just one of those late-night internet deep dives, the kind where you start watching some random YouTube documentary about cults, and 4 hours later you're scrolling through a forum dedicated to the occult. I wasn't a believer, at least not back then. But I was desperate. His name was Jason. The kind of guy who skates through life off the back of other people's misery. He had a good job, not because he was smart or hardworking, but because his dad knew a guy. He had a hot girlfriend, not because he treated her well, but because he knew how to lie. And he had me, his personal punching bag. I worked at the same company as him, small marketing firm in downtown Chicago, nothing special. I started from the bottom, working my ass off, picking up the slack from guys like Jason. But he got promoted, I got shit on, he stole my ideas, trashed my reputation, turned my co-workers against me, and worst of all, he made sure my life outside of work was just as miserable. It started with little things, embarrassing stories shared at office parties, my lunch mysteriously going missing, my car getting keyed in the company parking lot. Then he escalated. He made sure I got blamed for botched projects. He spread rumors. He got my girlfriend to leave me. He fucking laughed at me. So yeah, when I saw that thread buried deep in the kind of subreddit that gets wiped off the internet every few months, I didn't scroll past. The post was simple. Custom voodoo dolls, real pain, real suffering. It had a link. Some shady-ass website with a name like Dark Hex Market, something that sounds fake but isn't. The site was old-school HTML, black background, red text, a single page with a few options. Injury, sickness, death. It was a joke. It had to be. But I clicked. The rules were straightforward. You send them a piece of the target, hair, fingernails, blood, if you could get it. You choose what you want to happen. You pay, then you wait. I added Jason's name. I picked injury, just to see. $350 in Bitcoin. Seemed like a scam, but what was another $350 when my life was already fucked? The hardest part was getting the hair. The office had this tiny-ass kitchen, one of those open concept setups where everyone could see you. Jason was always touching his hair, styling it with whatever expensive shit he used. I waited, and one day, after he finished bragging about some trip to Miami, he ran his fingers through his hair, and a single blonde strand drifted onto the counter. I snatched it before anyone saw. I mailed it to some P.O. box in Louisiana. Then I waited. Nothing happened for a week, then 2. By the 3rd week, I forgot about it. Maybe Jason was right about me. Maybe I really was the kind of guy who believed in stupid shit. Then came the meeting. It was a regular Monday. Jason was supposed to present some campaign he definitely didn't work on, and I was supposed to sit in the back and pretend not to care. But Jason looked off. His usual cocky swagger was gone. He was fidgeting, sweating. Every few seconds he reached under the table and scratched at his arm. 10 minutes in, he couldn't take it anymore. "Excuse me," he mumbled, and rushed out. People laughed. Someone muttered, "What the fuck was that?" And we moved on. I didn't see Jason for the rest of the day. By Wednesday, the rumors started. Jason wasn't coming to work. He wasn't answering calls. His girlfriend, yeah, the same one who left me, posted some cryptic shit on Instagram about hospital visits and prayers needed. I felt something, not guilt, not sympathy, something else. So I sent another request. This time, I picked sickness. 3 days later, I saw Jason, or what was left of him. He came in to pick up his stuff. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. His skin was grey, his eyes sunken in. His usual tailored suit hung off his frame like a scarecrow's clothes. People whispered. He ignored them. I didn't. I walked up to him, pretending to be a concerned co-worker. "You good, man?" I asked. He looked at me, and for the first time in years, He looked scared. Not of me, but of something else. "I can't fucking sleep," he muttered. "I can't eat. I keep getting these fucking cramps, man, like something's twisting my insides. Doctors don't know shit. They say it's stress." I nodded. "Probably is." He laughed. It wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when they're on the verge of breaking. Then he left. And I bought another doll. This time I picked death. I didn't expect it to work. Not really. The first 2 times, sure, but death, that felt different, permanent. It was easy to believe in a coincidence when someone got sick or had weird pains. But dying? That wasn't something you just brushed off. Still, I did it. $1,000 in Bitcoin, that was the price. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I just sent it. And then I waited. I don't know what I expected. Some instant karmic punishment? A shadowy figure knocking on my door to tell me I'd gone too far? I barely slept that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd just put some kind of curse on myself. Nothing happened. Not the next day, not the next week. Jason was still alive. I checked. His Instagram was dead, but his girlfriend was still posting, mostly sad selfies with captions like, "Trying to stay strong," and "God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors." I wanted to comment, God had nothing to do with this, but I didn't. I just kept watching. A month passed, then 2. Then Jason came back to work. Or something that looked like Jason. The first time I saw him, I almost felt bad. Almost. His hair was gone, not shaved, fallen out. His once perfect skin was covered in sores, and he moved like someone was pulling his strings with rusty wires. His hands shook. His lips cracked when he spoke. "Hey, man," he croaked when I passed him in the hall. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the Jason I hated. This was something else, something weaker, but weak men still suffer. I wanted to see how far it could go. I emailed the seller. Me. "It's been 2 months. Nothing happened." Them. "Results vary. Do you want to accelerate the process?" Me. "What does that mean?" Them. "More pain, faster, no turning back. $500. A discount, apparently. I paid, and this time I watched. It started the next morning. Jason wasn't at work. Again. By noon, I was deep in his girlfriend's Instagram waiting. I didn't have to wait long. "Please pray for Jason. He collapsed this morning. He won't stop screaming." That night, I dreamed of him. I dreamed I was inside him. Not in a weird way, more like I could feel what he felt. I was burning. My bones felt like they were being ground into splinters. My stomach twisted, and something sharp dug into my guts, twisting and twisting. I woke up gasping and laughing. The next day, I went to visit him. I told the receptionist I was an old friend. No one questioned it. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and sweat, the kind of place where people go to get better, but some just never leave. Jason was in room 309. I expected tubes, wires, machines beeping like in the movies. Instead, I found him, alone, in the dark. He looked worse than before, like a skeleton with skin barely stretched over it. He was staring at the ceiling, lips moving, whispering something I couldn't hear. I stepped closer. Then he turned his head, too fast, like his bones weren't even attached right anymore, and his eyes, fucking hell, his eyes were wrong, not sick, not tired, just wrong, like something else was looking through them. His lips cracked open. "You," he whispered. It wasn't a question. I froze. Jason coughed. Something wet hit his chin. "I know what you did." The way he said it, he wasn't guessing. I almost denied it. I almost played dumb, but why? He was already dying, so I smiled. And his whole body shook. Not like a seizure, not like a chill, like something was pulling him from the inside out. He gripped the sheets, nails digging in, his back arched. A sound came out of him, half scream, half gurgle, then snap. His right leg bent the wrong fucking way. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. He screamed, clawing at his own skin, tearing chunks off like paper. The machines wailed. Nurses burst in. One look at me and they started shouting. "Get out now!" I ran. But before I left the room, I looked back one last time. Jason wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at the corner of the room, and he was crying. That night, I checked the website again. There was a new option. Collection, I clicked. The screen went black. Then a single message appeared. "We'll be in touch." I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jason's leg snapping like a broken mannequin, his skin peeling away in bloody strips. I could still hear the wet crack of his bones splitting apart. The way he looked past me had something else. By morning, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then I checked my email. From "No sender subject, collection," confirmed. That was it. No message, no reply button. Just those 2 words. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. I wasn't sure what the hell I had agreed to. I clicked the email again, but it wouldn't open. Like it didn't even exist anymore. At work, people were talking, whispering. Jason was in a coma. "Brain damage," someone said near the coffee machine. "Docs think his body went into shock from all the trauma." I pretended to care. Then I went home and waited. 3 nights later, my doorbell rang at 3:13 a.m. I jumped awake, heart hammering. My apartment was dark except for the glow of my phone screen. Another email. "Open the door?" I sat there, breathing fast. The bell rang again. I got up, moving slowly. Every step felt wrong, like my body was trying to hold me back. I reached the door, looked through the peephole. Nothing, just an empty hallway. I hesitated. Then I did what no sane person would do. I opened the door. The hallway was wrong. I don't mean empty, I mean wrong. The lights flickered. The air smelled like burnt hair. And the hallway stretched longer than it should have, like my apartment was the only door in a tunnel that went on forever. I stepped back, about to slam the door. Then I saw it. On the ground, just outside my door. A box, small, wooden, no markings. I stared at it. My hands were sweating. I don't know why I picked it up, but I did. I shut the door, locked it, twice. Sat on my couch and stared at the box. Then I opened it. Inside was the doll. Jason's doll. The same one I had ordered, only now it looked like him. Not just a generic figure anymore. The skin was pale and bruised, stitched together like a patchwork of rotting flesh. The legs were bent. One of them snapped backward, just like in the hospital. My hands shook as I lifted it. Something shifted inside. I tilted it, listening. A wet squelch. My stomach turned. I squeezed the doll, just a little. Somewhere far away, a muffled scream echoed. I dropped the doll. The sound stopped. I sat there, panting. My heart felt like it was about to punch through my ribs. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown. "Number, now he's awake." I stared at the screen. The message disappeared, like it had never been there. I didn't go to work the next day. I stayed in my apartment, staring at the doll, afraid to touch it. By noon, I caved. I opened Instagram. Jason's girlfriend had posted a picture of her in a hospital hallway. The caption, "He won't stop screaming." I swiped to the next post, a video. I hesitated, then pressed play. The sound hit me first. Jason's voice, shrieking. Not normal screaming, not even pain, pure fucking horror. The camera shook as his girlfriend walked into his hospital room. The lights were flickering. Jason was thrashing against the bed, his body convulsing, his eyes wide, bulging, rolled all the way back. His mouth was open, lips bleeding like he had been biting his own tongue. Then he stopped, just like that. His body went still, his head slowly turned, and he looked directly at the camera. Number, not the camera, at me. I dropped my phone. The video kept playing. Then I heard it, a whisper, not from the phone, from the doll. It came from inside it, a single word. Help! I threw it across the room. The whispering stopped, but I knew Jason wasn't done, and neither was whoever was inside the doll. I didn't touch the doll for 2 days, didn't sleep either. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jason's face, his mouth hanging open, his eyes rolled back, his body convulsing like something was inside him, pulling his strings. I kept checking Instagram, waiting for another update. Nothing. It was like Jason stopped existing. Then on the third night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but I did. Silence. Then breathing, wet, labored, like someone was trying to choke down their own vomit. I swallowed hard. Hello? More breathing. Closer. Then a voice. Not Jason's. Not even human. Not done. The call cut off. I dropped my phone. It was vibrating in my hand, buzzing like it was going to explode. The screen flashed. Static. Numbers. Symbols I didn't recognize. Then a photo. I didn't open it. I didn't fucking want to open it. But my hand moved on its own. My thumb slid over the screen and the picture filled my phone. It was Jason, or what was left of him. The hospital bed was empty. The sheets soaked in something black. Jason was on the floor, curled into a fetal position, his skin peeled away in places, his arms, his chest, his fucking face. His mouth was open, his jaw unhinged, his tongue was missing. Number not missing. Something else was in its place, a stitch. One long black thread sewn into his mouth like someone had tried to close him up from the inside. I gagged. The taste of bile burned my throat. Then I saw it. In the corner of the photo, a shadow, tall, watching, not Jason, not the doctors, something else, something that had been waiting. I threw my phone across the room. It cracked against the wall, the screen flickering. The photo was still there. Then my bedroom lights cut out. I froze. The air turned thick, heavy. I heard it before I saw it. The sound of skin stretching, of bones shifting. Something was in the room with me. I turned. The doll. It was on the floor, closer than before. I hadn't touched it. I knew I hadn't touched it. But now it was facing me. Its tiny, stitched mouth was open. And inside was something moving. I fucking ran. Didn't grab my phone, didn't grab my keys. Just ran out of my apartment, barefoot, down the stairs, out into the freezing Chicago night. I didn't stop until I was blocks away. Didn't breathe until I was standing under the glow of a 7-Eleven sign, my heart trying to punch out of my chest. I turned, looking back at the direction of my building. My apartment window was dark, but I swear to God, something was standing in it, watching me. I spent the night in a shitty motel on the other side of town, slept with the lights on, the TV blaring some late-night infomercial, just to drown out the sound of my own thoughts. At some point, exhaustion won. My body shut down, and then I dreamed. Not like a normal dream. I was in a room, small, rotting. The walls were peeling, damp with something black and sticky. The air was thick, like rotting meat and burnt hair. And Jason was there. Or something that used to be Jason. He was sitting on the floor, curled up, whimpering. His head snapped up when he saw me. Too fast. His eyes. Jesus! His fucking eyes! They weren't his anymore. They were stitched shut. Black thread, like his mouth in the photo. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a muffled, wet noise. His body twitched violently like he was fighting something inside him. And then I heard it. A voice. Not Jason's, not mine, something else. You chose this. I spun around. The room was empty, but I felt it.
Behind me, right behind me. The whisper came again. You, let us in. I woke up gasping, sweating.
But I wasn't in the motel. I was in my apartment, lying on the floor, and the doll was in my hand. I screamed, threw the doll across the room. It hit the wall with a sickening, wet thud. I scrambled to my feet, chest heaving, my brain trying to process how the fuck I got back to my apartment. I had fucking left. I backed away toward the door, not taking my eyes off the doll. It just lay there, motionless, but I knew better now. It was never really still. My phone was on the coffee table. The screen was on, a single notification. Unknown number, it's time. My whole body went cold. A single knock at my door. I turned slowly. It wasn't like in the movies, where you hear some loud, dramatic pounding. This was quiet. Patient. Whatever was out there wasn't in a hurry. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at the door, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. Another knock. Gentle, almost polite. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown. Number. Open it. Number no fucking way. I turned back to the doll. It was closer. I hadn't heard it move. It was lying on its side, its twisted little face staring at the door. Then slowly, so fucking slowly, its tiny, rotting mouth opened. A sound came out, not a whisper, not Jason, a voice I didn't recognize, and it said my name. I bolted for the door, not to open it, to run. I didn't know where, just away, but as soon as my hand touched the doorknob, every light in my apartment went out, and suddenly I wasn't alone. I felt it before I saw it. The air shifted, thick, wet, suffocating. A deep, rotting heat pressed against my skin, like something breathing against my neck. I turned. Slowly, painfully slowly, because I already knew what I'd see. The thing Jason saw in the hospital. The thing that had been waiting. It was tall, too tall, the top of its head scraped against my ceiling, its shape all wrong. Limbs bent backward, joints clicking as it moved. The skin, black, stretched too tight, like it had been stitched together from pieces that didn't quite fit. It had no eyes, just a mouth, a long, jagged slit running down the center of its face, stitched shut, just like Jason's. And in its hand, it was holding the doll. My stomach twisted. I couldn't move. The stitches on its face twitched, like it was trying to speak. Then it pulled the threads apart. The stitches split, tearing through blackened flesh. Something dripped from its mouth, thick, dark, soaking into my floorboards. And then, from deep inside its throat, Jason's voice. Not a whisper, not a plea, a scream. I snapped. I grabbed the first thing I could reach, a lamp, and swung. The glass shattered against its head, shards raining onto the floor. It didn't even flinch. It just tilted its head like it was confused, like it had never been touched before. Then it moved, too fast, a blur of broken limbs and snapping bones. I barely made it to the door. My hands fumbled with the lock, sweaty, shaking. Behind me, wet footsteps, closer. The knob turned. I yanked the door open and ran. I don't remember how I got out of the building. I don't remember getting in my car. I just remember driving, blowing through red lights, ignoring my phone buzzing over and over again. I drove until the city disappeared behind me, until I was on some highway in the middle of nowhere, running on fumes, my hands shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheel straight. I pulled into some abandoned gas station, killed the engine, and just sat there, breathing, waiting. It's been 3 days. I haven't gone back, I haven't checked my phone, I haven't slept. But I still see it, in reflections, in the shadows just beyond my motel window. It's waiting, not for Jason, for me. Because I understand now, the dolls, the sickness, the pain, the death, that wasn't the end, that was just the invitation. And when I paid for Jason's suffering, I bought my own.